Hey all, Sean Malone, Digital Business Masters. Hope you're well. Another look at the overall strategy, the digital business system blueprint we've run for over a decade now. Very, very established, proven. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's certainly proven. And it's a case of making sure that we give as many people in the world access to what's possible through decentralized tokenomics on the blockchain so that you can get ahead of the money, you can follow the money. And now, I'm pleased to say, in 2025, we're able to deploy assets in our own private ownerships that are being deployed by governments, by bosses, by banks. So we're ahead. If you were listening to us many, many years ago talk about this, it's all about transition. It's all about wealth transfer. Yeah, it's happened anyway. Those of you who've been able to keep up with the acquisition of assets and cash flows over the years, you're already in that wealth transfer. But now it's about accelerating that wealth transfer. So that's why it's all about education, empowerment, and decentralization. Yeah, we've known this for a long time. DBM co-wrote a book on this back in 2022 called Collaboration. You can find it on Amazon. So I'm going to put this call into two halves. Okay, there'll be two parts to this call. First part, you'll be listening to this on the likes of YouTube and across our X channels and across the Academy and across Telegram. So you're very welcome. Hopefully you get some value out of this and we can move forward together on a platform that gives you the ability to put practical steps that are now very, very doable, achievable by everybody with access to an internet connection. And you can put yourself in a place whereby you are empowered. That is the goal of DBM. That's what we're all about. So where did this come from? If you don't know who DBM are, Digital Business Masters, we established businesses many, many, many years ago, over 25 years now, 30 years now in corporate and small business enterprise. But back in 2008, got very, very badly affected by the so-called great financial crash. And we determined at that point that we needed to do something about it. We tracked 25 years of established business, or what was then 15 or so years, and we watched other people get badly affected. And for the past 15 years, we've watched lots and lots of people be affected. Hence, it's given us more energy and enthusiasm for looking at what it is to create a globally connected internet business, but crucially do that with financial education on the blockchain, because then you can combine the best of all those three worlds. So that's where DBM came from. So we've been navigating the wider blockchain industry for many, many, many years. Got involved with Bitcoin back in 2012 and never looked back. Never looked back. And I've just built and built and built and built. We've understood the store of wealth. We've understood how to protect purchasing power. We've understood how to redeploy that privilege into cash flow and continually reallocate so that we've built up critical mass that allows us then to work with active passive. Okay, there's no such thing as passive income, but active passive. And obviously we've compounded that and consolidated that and grown that. We've spawned multiple other academy businesses, we've spawned multiple coaches all over the world. And we're a core team now that has global coverage in every single time zone. Working across 14 different industry sectors, okay, totally self-reliant, which means that we're not beholden to any bank, with no borrowings outside of our own. And that's a very, very powerful place to be. So we did all that and obviously determined in 2020, just before the pandemic, that we were able to have enough confidence in this business model to expand that into a global academy, which is what we now have. And it's just ordinary people helping ordinary people with a combined over 100 years of blockchain experience now with the type team that we have created. So the main objective is the same today as it was 5 years ago. It's to get as many people as possible onto the front foot when it comes to a reliable, a consistent equivalent of $1,000 per month cash flow, purely from digital assets, Web 3.0, blockchain, and smart contracts. That remains our goal and will be our goal for some time to come, because obviously it's not an easy thing to transition ordinary retailer people who are predominantly employed across to having a business mindset, a business mentality, a business constitution, a business, ability to be able to stay the course. That is the biggest challenge. Hence, we talk about mindset, skills, then systems. And only with those three in place will you get to consistent income. And then from there, you can manage that income into wealth, which is a whole different story. So that's the background to what DBM is and where we come from and where our pedigree is. And we're still here in 2025, about to go into a whole new era, which I'll talk about now. Now, we're not here to give any advice on that regard, okay? Very important. We're not interested in giving financial advice. We've observed financial advice many, many decades, and it's not served people. It's still not serving people, and you can see that playing out in front of our eyes now as macroeconomics, geopolitics shifts very, very aggressively because they're cleaning the swamp. They're cleaning everything out. They're turning everything over, which started actually back in 2008, but they didn't do anything about it like they are now then. They just put the thing back on another, they kicked the can. They kicked the can. So, we spotted that. Luckily, we didn't get embroiled. We stood away from it. We became masters of our own destiny. And in that, we've created some powerful digital business models. All right. So we're here to educate people about that. We're not here to advise you on anything to do with finance. We're here to help you understand the big picture. Okay. Which can be boiled down in very, very simple terms, as I'll talk about. Now, before I go into the macro overview of why and how we've done what we've done, then just understand that if you're interested in moving forwards with any of this, there is a very simple procedure, right? And it involves taking you through a journey from mindset to wealth. And what we've done is do our best to put that into a bite-sized system so that you can go through that process at an affordable rate, for everybody. That's one of our big goals, is to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity. And to start that process, people come into the skills level where they're just learning different things about how to operate and be safe in this industry. And then what most people do, they move upwards, okay? They graduate to more sophisticated areas, such as understanding how to put systems together, okay? So they take those mindset and skills into systems. And there's a lot of work going on in the DBM Hub all the time about how to help people to help themselves. That's what a big part of this business model is about: support and structure and continually being there for people. And then those who get more sophisticated then wants to understand the bigger picture, how to invest in themselves and fast track. And the way to fast track is to put yourself with accountability, put yourself with someone every single day of the week, ideally, or at least 2 or 3 times a week. To say, right, here I am, what do I do next? Here I am, what do I do next? I've done that now, what do I do next? And that's what the income subscription is all about, especially through what are called DBM workspaces. Okay, so all the way through this, you'll hear me allude back to where you need to be. And it's always about investing in yourself before you invest in anything else. It's very easy to throw money at things, especially because there's a lot of marketers involved in this industry, a lot of networkers, old-fashioned networkers who just try and sell you things and get you to buy things in the short term, hoping something will come to pass. You can't run a business like that. You have to be in control every single step, which is why you need the skills before you allocate anything to systems, and work with proven blueprints, work with things that have been proven on your behalf by other people before you start throwing money at things because some marketers got you all excited. So be very, very careful about the marketers in this industry. Basically then, in order to understand the big picture, it's a case of getting down to fundamentals. Fundamentals that are still not appreciated, less understood, even by the leaders of our countries. They're either ignorant or complicit to the very fact that unless you fix the money, you'll always have the problems of the world. Obviously, not all the problems are going to be solved, but you're going to go a long way to helping people become more confident and empowered and a freedom of choice, which is what most people want after security. It's the hierarchy of needs. Yeah, go and look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and have a look at where you're at on that and figure out, and you'll see that once the money starts to be fixed, you become a whole different person. hopefully for the better. Money can have the effect of bringing out people's true sense, unfortunately. But for most of us, it brings out an ability for us to go and help other people. So fix the money. And now if the governments and the bosses and the banks won't fix the money, which, you know, if you're in your 40s, 50s and 60s now, you've had long enough to see that that isn't what on their agenda. You've got to go and fix the money for yourself. And it's not difficult to do. It's really not difficult to do. It takes mindset and skill. And that's where the Academy was born from, to help people and process people through stages. But it's in essence very simple. But the first thing you've got to do is understand the difference between currency and money. So to this day, we still lean on resources and expertise from third-party influencers and providers of information that we've worked with for years and years and years. You know, you're talking about people like Robert Kiyosaki, Mike Maloney, you know, Lynette Zhang, all these people have been around for decades talking about this. And we still lean on those people to give us the fundamentals. So go to the basics, where to start section in the Academy and go and watch The Hidden Secrets of Money and put this information under yourself before you do anything that I'm just about to talk about next. Okay, because once you've understood the problem, the foundational issue, which hopefully is being changed as we speak because of businessmen now being in charge as opposed to politicians and lawyers, then we're in a world now where this is becoming more and more obvious, hopefully, to people. For those of you who've been working with DBM for any length of time, this has been something that's just clearly how it works, right? Most people will just go to work every day, exchange time and skill, energy for what they think is money, but it's not. You're being paid in currency. And then you're taking some of that currency to go and live life by buying liabilities. You're just constantly going through the motions every month, every quarter, every year, every decade, and hoping you can keep back enough of that currency in the form of savings to provide you with purchasing power that steps you into the next phase of your life, on the next phase of your life, the next phase of your life, which ultimately ends up, God willing for most of us, at a good old, ripe old age, so that we can then step back from exchanging skill and energy for currency and live off the purchasing power of our first 40 years of existence. Now, how's that going for you? There's your issue. Okay, it's clearly the problem. Everyone knows it. So what you need to do as quickly as possible, and what I love about the digital space is that you're able to make this transition within 5 years. If you don't do anything at all and you're carrying the way you are, you will end up running out of purchasing power just at the point you need it. So the sooner you start to understand that it's about, yes, putting skill and time and effort and energy into something, of course it is. That's what makes the world go round. You've got to earn a living. But then you allocate proportions of that income into assets. And particularly, you think about assets that cash flow. Equity is one thing, but yield is another. You need both. You're running a profit and loss account and you're running a balance sheet at the same time. You get your balance sheet up to enough value so you can borrow against yourself and push that against your P&L and drive forward, all at the same time is really good at reducing your costs, especially when you're in your younger years. You can go and do bigger things when you get older, right? Because that's the idea of retirement. But the purpose here is to build up that nest egg, build up that critical mass, build up that balance sheet. But you must cash flow while it's doing that. Otherwise, you're not going to have anything to reallocate and you're not going to have anything to live off in the process. So you'll find yourself in this cleft stick of splitting yourself in two, in simple terms, between a job, whether you have a job or you own a job, left-hand side of the cash flow quadrant, yeah, employed or self-employed, you have a job, you own a job. You want to be going to the right-hand side of the cash flow quadrant, which is what this is, top right, become a business system owner, own your own digital business, and then deploy enough of that activity into investment, the bottom right-hand side of the cash flow quadrant, for that to feed and energize your business system in the form of cash flow and equity. So the sooner this is done and faced, and put into a rhythm. And again, to go back to what I said before, we help hundreds of people all the time, every single week, with regards to this. And I can tell you now, since we started the education division of DBM 5 years ago now, so plenty of experience, the vast majority of people, their biggest issue is not, it's not that they don't understand this, it's not that they can't do it, it's that they don't keep going. And that is tragic. So all we can do is provide the support resources and keep people up to date with everything that goes on, okay, which is what calls like this are for, because things do change quickly. What you do is devote yourself that you are going to make the difference. And that, done enough over a long enough time, gives you the ability to be in a totally different world when it comes to what you're capable of, especially if you're thinking about, extending your life opportunities, putting things into other people's hands, family, friends, to help other people, which is a great use of this type of technique. And of course, legacy. That's where you want to be. That's the energy level you want to be at when it comes to what you've worked hard for. Put it another way, okay, you get more technical, a little bit more economic modeling, but very simple again. You own assets, you accrue equity. Anybody see what's been going on with the gold price over the past few weeks? Anybody see what's been going on with the Bitcoin price over the past few weeks? Weeks I'm talking about here. Yeah, it's not difficult. You acquire and hold. Let the market come to you. The clever bit is how you release equity without selling. That's the clever bit, but that you'll learn that in the academy. The whole point then is to allocate some of the equity across the cash flowing activities. This is the really, really hard bit. It's not difficult to buy assets. It's really difficult to find reliable cash flowing entities, but it's becoming much, much easier, because now you've got all sorts of regulation and legislation and all sorts of things going on around the TradFi space that's combining DeFi to TradFi. So it's very easy for us now to find these cash flowing entities. Okay, and we work hard on them behind the scenes. That's why, as an income subscriber, you're going to get a lot more speed with this, because you can help us with it, because you're in the right mindset to help the process and keep up with what you've done. Thousands of people inside the academy, inside DBM, have done things over the years to try and create cash flows and found problems, challenges, difficulties. And I'm afraid to say the vast majority give up on their assets. They give up. That's the issue. So that's what I mean by hard, right? It's not hard to find these mechanisms, but what is hard is to manage through the tough times of these mechanisms. But that's okay, because it's easier when you work together. Collaboration is the name of the game. The clever bit, and it's happening right in front of our eyes as we speak, I'm talking to you here in early February 2025. The real clever bit is whatever happens here, for the first time in human history, we have the ability to own the US dollar. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. Yeah? Not in cash flowing terms. And I mean own it. I mean, you're putting yourself in equivalence of that currency. Now, that's very, very important. It's just about to become even more important. And for many, many years, we've seen natural pay rises because we're located in different parts of the world: British pound, euro, yen, whatever, Australian dollar. And every time the US dollar decides to do something, we get a pay rise. In other words, because we own the dollar, because we're cash flowing in USDT equivalents, we're able to increase our purchasing power in the country that we reside in. The sooner people understand that, the better. Now, obviously, millions of people do understand that. That's why the dollar is so sought after, but not in cash flowing terms. And obviously, we reallocate proportions of that back to our balance sheet and grow up our critical mass, and then we just re-leverage the equity again back into reliable cash flowing mechanisms and do it all over again. That's what purchasing power is. You just simply do this over and over and over again. So it's called the triple lock. Purchasing power, yeah. It's a play on words. If you're from the UK, you'll understand what I mean. We're taking our own triple lock. We're not waiting for some government to give us some spurious guarantee. that our purchasing power will be looked after 25 years from now. We don't believe that as long as we've got a hole in our head. We totally want to take control of it for ourselves. Okay? So, the final summary piece of that is to understand the real skill here. The real skill is the transition of you becoming a ravaged, inflation beaten up employee consumer saver, utterly ravaged, utterly taken advantage of. And this still, unfortunately, is the case for the vast majority of the world's population. If they have a bank, don't forget there's over 3 billion people on the planet that are unbanked. I'm talking about, first world problems here. The whole idea is for you to recognize that you have no chance. Things are changing, don't get me wrong, but, it's too early to say where it's going to go next. But all we do know, for the decades and decades that most of us have lived, certainly since 1971, it's been the case that big bosses, banks, and governments have either been ignorant or complicit, and it's a mixture of both, obviously, when it comes to the games that they've played with people's lives. So what have we done about that over the past 10 years? Well, as I've said, we flip it on its head. We can't even rely on the pension schemes and the index funds and the bond markets and the annuities. This is where the financial advisors have been so ignorant or complicit. They're interested in a commission. They're interested in getting a job. They're no different than a marketer or anybody else who's just trying to sell you something for their short-term benefit. They're not really studying what's going on. They're not looking at the mechanics of the actual purpose of the benefit of the technology or the company they've decided to invest in. Go and write to your pension company, ring them up today and say, can you tell me specifically what my money's involved with in every single index fund and every single plan that you've organized? Can you tell me what I'm investing in? They won't answer you because they don't know. In this world that we operate in, we're totally responsible. What we put our hard-earned energy and effort into, what we convert our currency into in the form of assets, we do that obviously starting off with Bitcoin and then just let Bitcoin, the market, come to us. We then take that and deploy into smart contracts. So we own stable assets inside what's called blockchain technology. We then become the owner of that going concern, that entity, that business. And if you're really clever, you'll start to consume the purposes of that business. So you're not just owning it, you're also part of the tokenomics to create a book value on the asset, often manifests itself as a token or a coin, so that every time you do something, you're contributing to the value of that underlying asset. Then you take that equity and you deploy back into the same company, or you diversify when you get really sophisticated into where the market's going and let the market come to you. And that has just become a lot easier over the past couple of years because of the maturity and the way we're understanding more about companies that exist already that are determining to wrap blockchain technology around them, often through what are called smart contracts. We're not as much involved, we still look at these things, but we're not as much involved these days in ideas manifesting as coins, or often just tokens, that are an idea that everybody gets excited about. They pump it up because it looks like a good idea, but it's not based on anything because it's not a real business. It's just an idea. Well, they still have a part to play, especially in the altcoin side of this industry. But you need to be more aware of existing businesses that are wrapping smart technology around themselves so that you've got a head start, a running start into that coin stroke token having a fundamental real price, not a perceived market price. So that's the big difference in this green box. It's about you owning what it is you're consuming. You may as well get paid for things you're doing anyway. And if you write down on an average day all the things you do, I think you'll find it's a bigger list than you might imagine. Then you've got to go and find companies doing that you can take ownership in, and they're going to give you a yield for that. And it's brilliant, right? Again, this was a concept just a few years ago, the section in the collaboration book that DBM co-wrote was all about this. And now it's an absolute fixture. It's an absolute reality. And it's just a case of building and building and building and finding more and more and more of these entities, which we'll look at briefly in a minute. Now, to cap it all off, what makes it really exciting and really interesting is when you recognize that we've moved from the idealists, those of us back here, these crazy people who knew something had to change, knew it wasn't going to be changed by bossing bats and governments. Yeah, certainly not then. Things are shifting now. But the whole idea was we were on our own. We were pushed back, we were castigated, we were called, quacks, the whole thing. And we were just slowly accumulating, because we knew at the end of the day that we needed an accretive asset on our own Bitcoin reserve, right? Now, that's become normal, or very quickly becoming normal. Even governments are now putting strategic Bitcoin reserves underneath them. And that's going to move very quickly now on the other side of this yellow line. So the tailwinds are with us. And we're just taking full advantage of that now, having moved all these years without ever feeling pressure to do anything other than accumulate. That's what it is to build a balance sheet. It's like putting the spade in the ground on a first field that you've got to build your first factory on. Putting that spade in the ground, you've got no idea how difficult it's going to be to get the factory up, the machines in, the staff, all these things you need to run a full-blown factory. You have no idea how difficult it is. If you knew how difficult it was going to be, you would never do it. But as the days and months and years go by, and you're supporting each other on a big industrial estate where you've all put a spade in the ground, and everybody can help each other, just keep going with what it takes to turn a spade in the ground to a fully fledged operational cash flowing factory, then all of a sudden the rest of the world wakes up to that. That's where we are. So if you're in this place, you've done incredibly well. And now it's just a case of recognizing that supply by 2036, not very far away now, 99% of the entire Bitcoin that will ever exist will have been mined. And if you're not, unless you've been under a rock, the amount of Bitcoin being taken off the market, yeah, they'll have to come and take it out of our hands. And that means you're naming the price. The whole market will name the price. That's why they talk about the levels they talk about when it comes to just Bitcoin alone being where it's going to be over this next decade. That's what's so exciting about this next decade. All right. So your goal is to own one Bitcoin and do that through DCA every single time. I don't care what the price of Bitcoin is. You're getting, early February, you're seeing all this stuff going on. Forget it. You just got to keep moving. Whenever you see a dip, you buy the dip. When you go into that, you look at it as an opportunity, not as a threat. Drive. All right. So last couple of slides, just to try and give you a sense, if you're listening to this on the external channels outside of DBM, then here's a little bit of a thought for you. You need to own a digital business plan. Sounds very complex and convoluted. It sounds very sophisticated. It's really not. It's really not. If you've been listening to what I've been saying for the past 20 minutes, it's all about putting yourself on a basis and being disciplined to keep going with that basis. That manifests itself as simply acquiring Bitcoin. If you do nothing else, just accumulate Bitcoin. Now, you'll quickly find that that isn't enough for you, because you'll recognize, especially if you're getting yourself into the skills and systems aspects of what we do at DBM, you'll soon recognize that it's not just about owning a fundamental asset and waiting for price. In other words, waiting for equity. You may as well just go and buy a building and just wait for it to go up, right? The only reason that happens is because you print more currency, which it's just about to do again, by the way. So that puts massive tailwind effects on the price of all assets, including Bitcoin. But you'll find that that isn't enough for you. You'll quickly find that there's ways to reallocate that equity. You'd never sell the asset, ever, never sell assets. Reallocate the equity and wait for the equity. And then put that equity to work in proven cash flowing areas, sectors. Yeah? This isn't easy. And you shouldn't expose yourself to this 100%. You certainly shouldn't expose cash to this. You should de-risk cash and put the de-risked cash across into what are by definition high risk entities. Anything earning close to 5%, 10% a month is high risk by definition. Of course it is. Accept that risk. Put that risk into your thought pattern. Yeah. Don't think that everything's going to be done once, one and done. That's a big area where people give up. They think, oh, I spent all that money up. The total risk, there was no de-risking. They put it all straight in, said, this is going to set me up for the rest of my life because he said he would. No. You do it the way you're supposed to do it. You put your assets to work first, you weigh equity, you de-risk the cash, you put the cash into high-risk entities, and then you just let that build. You reallocate. 80-20 principle is what we always say. That's very straightforward. That's what this section here is about. It's all about bringing yourself back to US dollar equivalents. And then with that yield, you go back to build more of your base and you repeat. You're constantly reallocating back to your base balance sheet and let the balance sheet fund your business. Now, if you're more sophisticated and you've got even bigger boy and girl pants and you're prepared for a real ride, I mean, this is tough, really tough, because you'll find a huge number of people all over the internet trying to tell you this, that, and the other about everything. Everyone's got a bloody opinion, right? But all I'll say is if you are going to get in with the altcoin side of the industry, which I'm a massive fan of because we've leveraged it like crazy over many, many years. But you've got to understand that in the altcoin game, while it can accelerate your equity very quickly, which gives you much, much more purchasing power to go back and get to safe territory again in Bitcoin and USDT, or USDC, it's very difficult, right? And this is the thing that breaks a lot of people. A lot of people get broken inside altcoin. I don't care what it is. If you're working with some sort of trading bot, or you're working with an altcoin that's trying to become something, or you're working with memes, I don't care what it is. It will break you unless you're in control of every single step. And that starts with de-risk cash. So if you don't understand how to de-risk before you get involved with anything to do with high yield USDT smart contracts or high risk altcoin trading bots or whatever else you're looking at, then understand that first. Understand that first, and you'll feel much more comfortable about what it is. Yeah, again, I'll repeat. If you're being brought into any of these types of platforms, USDT smart contracts or altcoin-based mechanisms by marketers, think twice. Think twice. Put them under pressure and have them tell you what they know about it in detail, and have them tell you, can they give you at least 3 months of proven performance that comes from the use of the actual technology, not some commission structure. If they can't do any of those two things, walk away. Okay? Be careful. Think about what works, only operate with what works, and know that nobody, not even DBM, can be absolutely guaranteed that these will carry on. That's why you have to diversify. Okay? Just be careful. We've all been there. We've learned this lesson. We're in 2025 now. We're more grown up. So we need to make sure that we're helping people who are coming through for the first time. Because all this is about building up significant momentum. If you're walking into this space for the first time in 2025, listening to this and thinking, wow, this sounds interesting and exciting and easy, know that it isn't. Know that it isn't easy. It's taken, as you've heard, over a decade of experience to build to this, and many, many mistakes and many, many successes. I'm glad it's worked that way, because without the mistakes and without the heartache, we wouldn't be as successful as we are, obviously. So the whole idea is to recognize that that is a pedigree, and then recognize on a global political and macroeconomic level, everything is now behind us. We've got the spinnaker up. We're flying down to the next buy. We're going to win this race because we can see what's in front of us and the wind's behind us. It's a race now all the way through to make sure we optimize what's happening, especially in this Bitcoin bull run that we're in, but won't be in for much longer. You know, like all these phases, it'll come to an end. But if you understand how to de-risk cash, you understand how to allocate equity into cash flow, and you understand how to leverage the right altcoin technologies, it doesn't matter what happens to Bitcoin. You just continue to DCA, and then you wait for the next go round. Yeah, we're building up now to 2028. It's just a constant cycle like that. It's just bigger and bigger and bigger. The highs get higher. That's all we do. But with what's going on now with, like I said earlier, strategic Bitcoin reserves in particular, we're way, way ahead, way ahead. So whatever you're being told by the media, whatever you're being told by people, talking heads or financial advisors or economists, whatever you're listening to out there, if they're not mentioning the fundamentals that you've heard on this presentation about the difference between currency and money and fixing the money and how to put yourself under an accretive ownership on a balance sheet with an asset that's globally connected and finite in supply and in huge demand now by institutions, if they're not talking about any of that, walk away. Go and do it for yourself, or find someone who knows what they're talking about, which is few and far between as we sit in 2025. So to wrap up, these are examples of the industries that we operate in at DBM to do everything I've just been talking about. Now, you don't need to be operating in all these industries, especially if you're just starting out. Pick a couple that, resonate with you. But just know that knocking on 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears and building relationships and making sure that we're operating with the best companies that we can find in this very early stages of this industry, we've got 14 different industries. And inside of these industries, there's multiple companies and multiple projects. As I say, you don't need to take that as something that's daunting, but what you do need to do is recognize what's working and focus what you can affect. And look at the longevity with which a lot of these industries have now been a thing. They've actually been real. They've been happening. They've been part of the DBM ecosystem for all these years. And we've not stopped with any of them. Any of them. If you're in the DBM hub, every single company, every single project that's in each one of these sectors has got a chat group, and we're helping each other to keep going. We're looking for the next thing to move on. If you guys are in that with us, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it's tough because a lot of these companies, a lot of these, especially altcoin entities, will ebb and flow. They'll come and go. Yeah, you might have got all excited again because of the marketers. You'll have come in all excited. This is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. I'm just going to spend once and my life's going to be looked after forever. No, you're going to have to keep coming back to it and back to it and back to it and back to it and working on it and working through the tough times as well as the easy times. That's what DBM really is about. So decide what you want to do. But as I've highlighted here, if you were looking for short-term cash flows and short-term results, which obviously is what you need to be doing if you're looking for your first $1,000 a month, which should be your first goal, you need to be looking at entities that are proven and work, that are giving you yields that mean something every single day. Start there, right? But don't forget to de-risk the cash first. The coaches will explain how to do that. And then when you get more sophisticated, you can diversify into more altcoin-based activities that provide you these bursts of energy of growth. But know that it's going to be a process that has to be worked through. And if you need help in that, then again, that's what the workspaces are for. That's what the coach calls for, the coach's cafe. That's what we do all the time in the hub. Seek support, help each other, look out for each other. This has happened, that's happened, fantastic. Because you can't do everything at once, especially if you're busy with a family and working and whatnot. So help each other. Okay? So that's the overview of where we're at early 2025 at DBM. Hopefully that was useful. This is part one of a two-part series now. Every single week we come back. It's free to access as a free registrant at DBM, which is what I'm going to be talking about in the second part of this session now, whereby we look at the specifics for this week. So where are these projects this week in global economics and geopolitical maneuvers? Where are they? What should we be focused on right now? That's what the second part of this call is all about. So appreciate your time. We'll see you the next call.